The Tom Daniel Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniel Show.
You're listening to The Tom Daniel Show. I'm your host, Tom Daniel. You know, it's been a minute since I did a Tangled Roots edition episode of The Tom Daniel Show about someone or something from my family tree, and I've been saving this one particularly for Halloween. My second great-grandfather was John H. Daniel of Greenville, Alabama. I've talked about him before in other Tangled Roots episodes. And this one is all about his sister, and is called The Ghost of the Mary Daniel Bridge. It honors the real Mary Melissa Daniel, 1846 to 1920, who was officially my second great-grand-aunt, and it's intended to breathe life into the myth and ghost story that grew all around her. Now, there's a narrow bridge over Little Patsaliga Creek in Crenshaw County. That's where the fog hangs low over the water. Now, the map calls it County Road 50, but the locals there still know it by another name, the Mary Daniel Road and the Mary Daniel Bridge. Now, if you ask the right people, they'll tell you that on certain nights, when the fog drifts up from the water and the whippoorwills fall silent, you can see a figure walking that bridge. She carries a lantern. She never looks up, but if she calls out your name, you better not answer. On this special Halloween edition of the Tom Daniel Show, I want to explore the history and the haunting of the Mary Daniel Bridge and the deeper meanings that old ghost stories still carry in the South. Now, keep in mind that Mary Daniel was a real woman of Crenshaw County, Alabama. The bridge over Little Patsaliga Creek and the nearby Daniel Cemetery are both verified locations recognized in local folklore as haunted sites. Reports of her apparition and mysterious lights have persisted for decades, appearing in regional ghost collections such as the Haunted Alabama Black Belt and also the Southern Spirit Guide. Now, they say if you drive across the Mary Daniel Bridge after midnight, you'll see a pale figure walking the bridge, lantern in hand, her dress gathered against the mist, and she never looks up. She just crosses over and over between two vanished houses, the one where her parents used to live on the north bank and the one where she used to live alone on the south bank. Now, if you stop your car and listen, you might hear her call your name, although she's been dead for more than 100 years. Mary Daniel was born in 1846, the daughter of Abel and Harriet Daniel, on land near Seville. It's a place so small that it would later be absorbed into Honoraville. Now, she never married, although her 6 brothers and 5 sisters did. Now, the old folks said she stayed home to care for her aging parents, Abel and Harriet, which was the sort of quiet duty that went unthanked but not unnoticed back then. She kept the lamps filled, the gardens weeded, the porch swept clean, and her only companion was her nephew, Deacon Daniel, also known as Dump Daniel, what a nickname, who was also unmarried, and was living with her according to the 1910 census when he was 44 years old and Mary was 64. Now, when both of her parents died in 1899, only a month apart, the neighbors said Mary took to walking the bridge each night, lantern raised, checking on the cemetery down the way. The Daniel family cemetery lay less than 100 yards from the creek, the patch of ground just high enough to escape the floodwaters. She tended it as faithfully as she had tended the living. Instead of sweeping the porch, she was now sweeping the graves, and she spoke to them as she tended. But solitude breeds rumor, and in the deep hollows of Alabama, rumor breeds superstition. By the turn of the century, they'd started to call her a witch, not because she'd ever hexed anyone, but because she wasn't married and she talked to nobody. Children whispered that she could summon lights from the swamp and that she spoke to the dead buried under her care. Folks avoided that bridge after dark, not wanting to see what might cross along with them. Now, bridges have always been dangerous places in Southern folklore. They join the living and the dead. They join day and night. They join one world to the next. And maybe that's why Mary's spirit never left her bridge. Now, witnesses say she appears as a flicker at first, a dim yellow light bobbing through the fog. Then a figure takes shape, long dress, kerchief, the silhouette of a woman moving deliberately as if carrying out some unfinished task. Now, some swear they've heard her voice calling softly, using their given name. Others have seen the light vanish halfway across the bridge as though she just slipped into another world mid-step. Now, the graveyard nearby holds her body, but not her peace. And that's where the real rules come in. Now, if you visit the Daniel Cemetery, you have to leave by walking out backwards, step by step, eyes on the tombs in front of you, or else, the locals say, she will get out and follow you home. It's not meant as a threat so much as a warning. It's like, leave a light on for company you can't quite see. Now, stories about strange lights near the cemetery go back generations. Men who were hunting at night saw glowing orbs drifting through the trees. Not lanterns, not headlights, and not swamp gas either. One man, a deacon from Laverne, said he watched a pair of lights float from the cemetery to the bridge and back again, as if keeping watch over the road. Another woman told a story that her engine died on the bridge while crossing after sundown, and when she looked up, a woman was standing there, expressionless, holding a lantern of her own. Now, local children used to dare each other to touch Mary's gravestone, an old piece of marble cracked through the middle. Now, the bravest would claim to have done it and lived, though some said the ones who mocked her ended up in fender benders or sudden illnesses soon after. Now, the old folks called it the curse of the bridge, but others said Mary was not being malevolent, but simply protecting her resting place from disrespect. Now, the truth is, Mary Daniel wasn't a witch at all, only a caretaker who outlived everyone she loved. She spent her life walking that same road between home and grave, between life and what came after. The legend may have started the moment someone saw her carrying her lantern across the bridge after dark, a figure framed in fog, too still and too silent to seem entirely mortal. And after she died in 1920, people just kept seeing her as if she couldn't stop the motion. A neighbor once said she's just walking her path, always was. Can't fault a soul for doing what it's used to doing. And maybe that's really all that ghosts are, just habits that outlast the flesh. Now, the Mary Daniel Bridge still stands, though it's been reinforced with steel and asphalt over the years. The Daniel Cemetery still remains nearby, shaded by sweet gums and pines. Visitors leave flowers or trinkets at her grave, a quiet acknowledgement that the line between myth and memory is still thin in Crenshaw County. Now, at dusk, when the light turns copper over the creek, the air goes still enough to hear the cicadas pause, and that's when you feel it, the sense that someone is crossing near you, just out of sight. Locals say you can still see a small light moving along the bank, steady and patient, the way a woman walks when she knows the way home. Every Southern ghost story hides a truth about the living. Mary Daniel's haunting isn't one of vengeance or grief, but of duty, the kind that binds a person to their family, their land, their dead. She represents all those who gave their lives to others and were repaid with nothing more than solitude. And she walks not to frighten, but to remind that devotion leaves traces, that care endures, that bridges connect more than they divide. So when travelers cross Little Patsaliga Creek and glance into the dark water below, they might feel the hair rise on their necks. That's not fear. It's recognition. It's the memory of a woman still tending the space between worlds, The bridge bears her name. The land bears her memory. And the light, faint, unwavering, perhaps bears her soul. You're listening to The Tom Daniels Show. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Tom Daniels Show. And, if the ghost story isn't scary enough by itself, then that music just played by Mary Mac ought to give you nightmares for a while. Wow, Mary Mac is the world's most perfect band. So now that you know the ghost story of the Mary Daniel Bridge, named after an actual relative from my family tree, let's break down what it all means. First of all, it's a beautiful Southern ghost story. Compact, haunting, layered with hidden meaning. It blends family, history, landscape, and folklore in a way that is so characteristic of rural Alabama storytelling. Multiple sources of ghost story collectors have recorded the Mary Daniel Bridge legend. Some of the key agreed-upon features are as follows. First of all, Mary Melissa Daniel is always in the story. She was born in 1846, daughter of Abel and Harriet Daniel. She died in 1920, and she's buried in the Daniel family cemetery near the bridge. Now, secondly, the location of the bridge is always over Little Patsaliga Creek, near Highland Home in Crenshaw County, Alabama. It's often referred to in connection with Mary's gravesite. Additionally, all the stories include apparitions of a woman walking along the road on or near the bridge, or walking along the creek. All the stories include strange or bright lights seen along the road or the bridge. There's always a curse related to Mary's gravestone, such as, tampering with it brings misfortune or spirit activity. And finally, there's usually some kind of witch rumor in all the stories. Many accounts directly call Mary a witch or say she was rumored to be one. Some of the versions tie this into her being unmarried, a spinster, and having no descendants. Now also, in addition to the core ghost story, there are also a number of variations or embellishments to the story that appear in a few sources, though not in all. The most common of these is that Mary had a child who fell off the bridge and was drowned. Now, in reality, Mary actually had no children. However, over time, people often add tragic elements to intensify a ghost story. Also, there's the crybaby angle of a baby heard crying near the bridge. In some sources, this story is actually called Crybaby Bridge instead of Mary Daniel Bridge. In some versions, Mary summons watchers who haunt the woods to protect the graveyard and chase off any interlopers after dark. Protective spirits and guardians of graves are common in haunted folklore. I'm sure this just got added over time. Also, in some versions, her gravestone itself is haunted, and mischief follows those who disturb it. Now, this is not a surprising embellishment, as it's a very, very common Southern ghost story trope. There are many common traits and folkloric themes that you can find in most ghost stories, and this one about Mary Daniel embodies several classic motifs of American ghost lore, especially those from the Deep South. First of all, there's the woman who waits. Mary is forever walking between two homes, caught between two worlds. This echoes the global motif of the restless female spirit who lingers due to unfinished duty or devotion. Now compare this to the woman in white in England or the white lady figures across Europe. In the South, we find her as the Bell Witch in Tennessee, or the Madstone Bride of Hinds County, or Flora from the Yazoo River legend. Another one is the bridge as a threshold. Bridges in ghost stories often represent liminal spaces where two realms meet, land and water, past and present, life and death. All of those things are connected by some kind of bridge, and to cross the bridge is to enter the zone of uncertainty, folklore's perfect stage. Her haunting of the bridge symbolizes a soul unable to cross over entirely either way, still traversing the path she walked in life. Yet another of these is the dutiful spinster caretaker, a recurrent figure in 19th century Southern folklore. Women like Mary, who devoted themselves to family and never married. They were both respected and feared. Their solitude, paired with folk superstitions about unmarried women, often made them targets for whispers of witchcraft. In the folk imagination, the witch was often a woman who had too much knowledge or independence in a time when both could be dangerous. Yet another one, the graveyard lights, the will-o'-the-wisps. Reports of strange lights are among the oldest ghost phenomena on record. Scientifically, they may be due to gases from decaying vegetation or reflections, but folklorically they signify souls at unrest or warnings from the dead. Now, by the way, I live near a swampy wetland area, and I've seen the infamous swamp gas that they talk about many times. Even if you know what it is and you expect to see it, it still makes your hair stand on end. Another of these, the ritual exit, and, back out of the graveyard or she'll follow you. This little detail anchors the story in ritual folklore. It adds a rule, a taboo, which gives the haunting power. Many cultures have similar ideas. You don't turn your back on the dead, or you acknowledge the spirit as you leave its domain. It's also symbolic to back out of the cemetery. That's a way to keep one foot in the mortal world while respecting the supernatural one. Now let's take a deeper look at the theme of the ghost on a bridge. Now, this theme is an image steeped in threshold symbolism, and all across world mythology, bridges connect two realms, physical and spiritual, as in the Norse Bifrost, also known as the Rainbow Bridge, past and present, as folk memories persisting in the modern world, life and death. Crossing over the river is a universal metaphor for dying. So when Mary's ghost walks the bridge, she becomes the guardian of transition. She's caught between her duties in life, caring for her family, and the freedom of death, which she hasn't yet embraced. She is perpetually trapped, crossing back and forth between obligation and release. On a more personal, psychological level, the bridge may symbolize the link between Mary's living descendants, like me and my siblings and cousins, and our ancestral dead buried in that cemetery. When locals still speak her name, she remains half alive, crossing that bridge of memory every time her story is retold. Now, by the way, the Rainbow Bridge that I mentioned a little earlier in relation to the Norse Bifrost legend is not the same Rainbow Bridge that people refer to when describing the death of a pet. They're different things. I mean, they're both named Rainbow Bridge, but the Norse Bifrost is notably a flaming rainbow bridge. It's a rainbow bridge that's on fire. The pet version of the Rainbow Bridge is a fairly new concept, and it's a place of healing where animals wait in a suspended state of youthful health and happiness for their owners before crossing together into paradise. Now, more than likely, the pet version of the Rainbow Bridge was certainly inspired by the Norse Bifrost, but it's just not the same. Now, there are many comparable and famous legends that are similar to the ghost of Mary Daniel Bridge. Mary's tale fits into a venerable lineage of bridge ghosts and white ladies as follows. The Crybaby Bridge. There are legends found in nearly every southern state that typically feature a woman who lost her child near a bridge and whose ghostly cries are still heard there. Even though Mary was a spinster and never had a child, that aspect of the ghost story keeps kind of writing itself in there. The Bell Witch of Tennessee. Now, she was a powerful woman rumored to have unnatural influence and whose spirit lingers between homestead and grave. Then there's the White Lady of Avenel in Bedford, Virginia. She's said to haunt a plantation bridge, appearing in white to travelers at dusk. Then there's La Llorona, The Weeping Woman. This is a Mexican parallel story that can be found in Texas. A ghostly woman connected to water, mourning her family and bound to earthly crossings. And then you can't overlook the legend of Sleepy Hollow. The headless horseman cannot cross the bridge. And that reinforces the idea that the bridge marks the boundary between our world and the next. Now, all these stories reveal a shared structure. There's first a tragic or devoted figure. Next, there's a physical threshold, like a bridge or a river or a gate. And third, there's a haunting who eternally preserves the moral or emotional truth of their life. Now, what is the deeper human meaning in this story and others like it? Now, ultimately, this story is about devotion and memory, how love, duty, and loneliness linger even beyond death. Mary's eternal walk is the embodiment of three things. Number one, unfinished duty. She cared for others in life. Perhaps in death she cannot rest until she's sure her family's souls are all safe. Number two, rural isolation. Her bridge becomes the only path of connection, symbolizing how rural women often carried the emotional labor of family ties. And number three, cultural continuity. As long as her ghost is remembered, the Daniel family line stays rooted in its land and history. The haunting itself becomes an act of remembrance. Now, in that sense, a ghost story like this isn't really about fear. It's about kinship. Mary Melissa Daniel still walks that bridge, not to terrify, but to testify. She testifies that family, place, and memory are inseparable in Southern life. And as long as people tell their story, she keeps crossing that creek, forever between this world and the next. Thank you, everybody. This has been the Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening. Keep learning.
Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Take a break from your usual routine and tune into the Tom Daniels Show. You'll discover the world of melodies and stories that you might not know. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom